G'day, welcome back. I thought I'd do something a little bit different on this video, only because we've had a few little things that have stopped us from going out into the bush and doing a traditional type fall driving camping video. One of those things we've had down here in Victoria, and particularly in Gippsland, the last couple of months we've had more COVID lockdowns which prevented us from going out. We've had in the last 2 weeks some really severe storms which have really impacted the area, particularly in Gippsland, from the Dandenong Ranges, the Strzelecki's, just to the south, with really wild weather, trees coming down on houses, blocking roads, tracks, etc. And in the lower lying areas, flooding. Lots of flood alerts. We've had that much rain in a 48-hour period. It was quite unnerving. People have lost, livestock, properties underwater, rivers breaking their banks, and a lot of flooding. Apart from that, last week got called in and had to have surgery on my foot. So that's prevented me from actually getting out and driving because I'm not allowed to drive. So I'm healing, getting better, it's alright, don't panic. Everything will be good in a couple of weeks and I'll be getting back out there when I can. In this video, I'm going to go through some of the things that I do to prepare for a trip and what planning and preparation I go through prior to going away, whether it be a day trip, a weekender, or even longer. So the first thing that springs to mind to me when I'm planning any sort of a trip away is, where am I going? Am I going to go to somewhere that I've been before, and in the past we have done that, or am I going to go somewhere I've never been before? Is it something that's on my bucket list or your bucket list? These are things that you have to consider. There's no point going out and driving out the driveway and not knowing where you're going. So once I've worked out where we're going to go, the next thing I have to think about is, how long am I going for? Is it going to be just a day trip, a weekend trip away, or am I going to go for longer than that, whether it be several days up to even a week or a couple of weeks? We need to think about that, and that will also snowball into the rest of our planning process. Once you've worked out where you're going to go and for how long, you need to consider things such as fuel. Okay, how much fuel are you going to need for the trip, and are there places where you can get fuel on the way, or even once you get there? Do you need to take fuel with you? Say in a jerry can, just in case you need to top up your fuel tank to get to where you're going, or to get to a fuel station. Once I've worked out where I'm going to go and for how long, I may need to do some research on the area itself. So why do we do any research? Well, there's several reasons you research an area that you're going to go to. The main one is it may have interested you. You may have heard about this place on the internet, on YouTube, word of mouth, other people that have been there, and you don't know much about the place, but curiosity, you want to learn a bit more about it. So conduct a little bit of research on the area. Now that research can come from reading a book, an internet search and getting information off the internet. Someone else might have put up a YouTube video about it, and you want to go and experience that place yourself. So what do you research? Well, break it down into 4 things really: the tracks, maps, camping areas, and the weather. Okay, so when I look at the tracks, I look at things like what the track conditions are, and I can find that information out from several sources, such as having a look at the map, but also from the internet, and you can get a lot of information from the internet. Who would have thought? I look at things like, I go to the website Safer Parks Victoria, and I'll look at things like track closures and track conditions, and all that information can be gained off the website. And also, when it comes to track closures in Victoria, A lot of the high country tracks are actually closed between mid-June, from the end of the Queen's birthday long weekend, to around about the 1st of November every year. That's particular to the Victorian high country due to the very diverse inclement weather that's experienced up there, snowfalls, and it's just not safe to go there during those winter months. What I'll do is, in the comments down the bottom, I'll provide a link to all the relevant park websites for each state in Australia. So you can go there. That'll give you a bit of a reference tool to be able to go on and check, depending on which state you're in, what track conditions and closures, any alerts, etc., that they post on their websites. When I look at the maps, I actually look for what the tracks are. Are there any river crossings, steep ascents and descents along the track, which is the best way to go, and do a bit of a, what would you call it, a map reconnaissance per se. Another thing I can do with my research, and it's probably one of the easiest forms of research you can do, is utilise local knowledge, whether it be your own or a friend or an acquaintance you know that has been to that area before. Ask them, get their take on it, and say, well, hey, what's the tracks like? What's that camping area like? Are there any special things I need to prepare my vehicle for prior to departure? So personal knowledge can go a long way, as well as local knowledge. Okay, so when it comes to maps, there's several different types available. Even though a lot of vehicles are now fitted with the GPS, I find it's always a good idea to take a map with me. Just on the off chance that the GPS fails in some way, shape or form, or I might want to do a bit of planning during my trip. Alternatively, I might not even know where I am, so I need to find where I am. Types of maps I take with me, generally speaking, are the Vic map. There are lots of maps out there, different brands, scales, etc. You have the Rooftops brand map. As I said, you have the Vic map, and any other types of maps. There's also a map book that will have pretty much all the maps that you need for the area you may be going to. When we look at the maps themselves, I prefer to use the Vic map into 1:50,000. I also may have a map of the area that I'm going to in, again, a Vic map, 1:25,000 scale map. That just means that the area that you're looking, that's represented on the map, is in greater detail, more of a close-up view. Right, the rooftops maps, I don't actually use the rooftop maps a great deal. Although there's a lot of information about the area on the maps, I don't utilise the rooftop maps out of personal preference, only because they don't have that mapping detail that I require. When I talk about mapping detail, the Vic maps in the 1:50,000 scale, they're a topographical map, relatively easy to read. You can get a lot of information off that map. Same with the map book, again produced by Vic Map. The maps contained in this book, there are several maps there that are 1:100,000 scale, so there's not a great deal of detail, but it'll give you a bit of an overview of where you're going to go. There also are maps in 1:50,000 scale, so not a bad idea to have the map book. However, it is, as you can see, it's quite large and cumbersome, as opposed to a map that folds up nice and compact and small. Yeah, it folds out quite large, but you're not going to be driving along with the map right in front of your face. Other forms of maps that you can get, and nowadays there are some electronic mapping devices such as the VMS and also the HEMA Navigator. They're basically tablet sized, and you can mount them in your vehicle so you can actually utilise them. They're basically, or very similar to what's contained in the paper maps, but they're electronic. When it comes to the VMS, look, I've had it for a few years now, and I haven't actually used it whilst we've been out forward driving and camping. However, by having a play with it, I'm not overly impressed with the device itself, and that comes down to the processor speed. I have seen the HEMA Navigators in action, and I'm quite impressed with those. When it comes to a VMS, you get what you pay for. So when it comes to researching the camping area itself, I'm looking at things like what facilities exist at that camping area. Are there drop toilets? Is there any potable water? Is there mobile service there? I know that a lot of people get out camping and four-wheel driving to get away from the mobile service. I know that I do. However, sometimes it's good peace of mind to know that there is mobile service there in case of an emergency. Do you need to bring firewood? Or is there firewood in the surrounding areas that you can forage for to have a campfire? If not, you may have to consider bringing the firewood in as well. Are there rubbish facilities at that particular campsite? A lot of campsites don't have rubbish facilities, and as a rule of thumb, what you take in, always take it back out with you. Probably about a week prior to departing on the trip, I check the weather. Always check the weather forecast. It doesn't matter what time of year it is, check your weather. Particularly if you're going to the Victorian high country, because the weather in the high country can change quite rapidly and unexpectedly. So with the weather, I have an app installed on my mobile phone that I actually use quite regularly. I've actually got two apps. The first app I have is the Elders Weather app. Okay, it's quite informative, and it will give you at least a 5-day weather forecast, so that you can see what the weather's going to do, what the prediction is, and you can effectively plan your trip around that. The other app that I utilise as well on my phone is Weather Zone. Okay? Both these apps are free, and they will give you a forecast. They'll also give you radar view of what the weather's doing, so you can see what storms are approaching and from what direction. The third app I have installed on my phone is Vic Emergency. Pretty much relates to Victoria only. However, there are other states and territories have similar type of applications for mobile phones, which are very, very useful and very handy, particularly in high-risk weather seasons. Which at the moment in Victoria, every season is a high-risk weather season. So the Vic Emergency app will alert you to bushfires, floods, damaging winds, even alerts you to the COVID-19 pandemic. Who would have thought? So I have those installed on my phone. Pretty much, the only phones you can get these days are smartphones anyway, so whether they be Android operating system or an Apple phone, you can get both the apps or all these apps for either Android or Apple. It doesn't really matter. You can download them, and generally speaking, the download is free. Okay, well, that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you've really enjoyed the information I've passed on and shared with you today. And don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you like what you've seen and the information I've passed on, give it a thumbs up and the like down below. If you want to see some more, hit the little bell icon down there. Alright, and that will notify you of when I've put up another video. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen today, and I'll catch you all next time.